tech. We have a few different definitions that have been uh, defined throughout the years. So starting with 2015, we have Swati Chaturvedi mentioning that deep tech are those startups funded on scientific discoveries or engineering breakthroughs, which is sounds correct indeed, but is a bit generic. It was still a bit generic early on in the process. So what happened then is that in around 2017, Hello Tomorrow and BCG, they defined deep tech as disruptive solution built around unique, protected, or hard to reproduce technology or scientific advances, which resonates with a lot of the words that I've seen in the chat. And then we get to the European Commission's definition of deep tech, which is an institution or organization or a startup. So we expand the type of organization that can deal with deep tech with the express objective of providing disruptive solutions built around unique, protected, or hard to reproduce technology or scientific advances. What else can we add? We can add that deep, the connotation of the word deep of deep tech clearly means that it's fundamental. So hard to reproduce is something that requires a lot of investment from an academic perspective, from a research perspective. And it also mirrors what its potential when it goes out in the world, as we mentioned, internet, GPS, and so on, has the potential to completely, radically change the way we currently live, both in terms of novelty and the creation of new markets and ways of interpreting those markets themselves. So what we're going to do for this course is try to adopt a definition that is made by all these different elements that we've seen. And in this case, we have these 7 icons on the screen. So the actors, indeed, the ecosystem that allows deep tech to flourish and to actually become standardized tech at one point. The purpose, so addressing large-scale societal challenges. I remember seeing in the chat, somebody mentioned green and impact. I saw a few impacts as well, so that's relating to the purpose of it. Foundation, indeed, engineering breakthroughs, heavy on the research side. This has been the constant throughout all the definitions, more or less. The features which are peculiar to deep tech, it's its transformative potential, it's the potential that it has to completely change the way we also manage on a daily basis. The outcome can be services, can be products. Again, it's something that was not there yet, so it opens completely a new branch of the market. And then means and mission, again, similar mission, very similar to the purpose, but from just a technical perspective is the idea of creating something new that is not there, that it can come from scientific discovery. And I think that most of you will resonate with that if you are in this journey yourselves. You want to do something with your research, and deep tech is definitely an application of this potential research that you have. Moving onwards, I would like to present to you the table that is stemming from the definition of the EIT, so the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. This is a sort of table. You do not need to recognize yourself in any of these. This is not a comprehensive table. It's difficult to exactly delimit where deep tech starts or where deep tech ends. We do have some core traits, which, as we mentioned, is for sure the long research and development cycles. Also accompanied by the fact that there is a low technology readiness level at the start of it and high uncertainty around what the research is, where the research is leading to, and what its potential applications could be. It's oftentimes hardware based, as some of you mentioned in the chat. High capital intensity. Again, I don't think I need to add anything to this. It's pretty clear to everybody. Extended time to market. Again, the journey is quite treacherous and not that easy. Going through the valley of that is something that a lot of entrepreneurs have done before, but the resilience of those people is also what have made them go through this journey again and again and again and eventually succeed. Profile of the founder, scientific technical expertise, it's easier and it's more common. It's the practice that the CEO, for instance, of a deep tech company has a extreme depth of knowledge, technical knowledge and scientific knowledge about their invention, but that's not exclusively what you need to succeed in your journey. And we'll get to this a bit later. It's a unique commercialization journey. When in startup tech, you could develop a product or a service in, let's say, even under a year and commercialize it, and in 2 years you've finished your journey. Basically, deep tech is not really the case. When it's come to the times, it's usually a bit longer than that, around 5-6 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's the average for a deep tech company to actually then exit into the market. And I would like to now move on to the value and differentiation from this traditional tech a bit more in depth. So what deep tech usually does, and that's why it is deep tech, is that it can address high societal challenges, as we mentioned before, sustainability in this case, climate, energy, and health, for instances. And it has the potential to completely create new markets or redefine those existing markets right now. As I had the chance to speak in a breakout room, it's not that easy to achieve MVP validation, minimum viable product validation. It's something that is, as we've seen in the video as well, characterizes the valley of death, and it's part of this long and uncertain pathway that entrepreneurs go through. Lastly, the low market risk due to a lack of competitors. This is oftentimes the case. So it is true that once you got your solution in place, you don't necessarily have a lot of competitors. But as soon as your technology goes out, you will find a lot of potential, let's say, copycats, as it was the case, for instance, for AI, ChatGPT, very simply. Earlier on, it was the only product, and then it kept getting competitors on competitors. As we've had the chance to mention a few times, first of all, we have the long and uncertain development cycles, then the mindset or the team skills of the founding team, high capital intensity, difficult product market fit, and competition is less intense, but the regulatory and scaling challenges persist once it goes out. So first of all, we do have long and uncertain development cycles. I did mention 7 years. I was incorrect. I apologize for that. Deep tech ventures often take 10 plus years to mature. Well, not to exit, but mature. And there is extremely difficulty in aligning technological advances with evolving market needs, which is also something that was mentioned in the breakout room that I was in. It's also difficult to track and to map out those are the evolving market needs, especially if the solution has not got a clear application of it. It's difficult to exactly know the pathway that it will follow through. And it's extremely difficult to be able to get exactly the right solutions at the right time, either because the market is not there or because the customers are not ready to actually take up the solution that does potentially solve this issue. Personal reflection, as you can see at the bottom of this slide, which will come back with the remaining 5 slides, with the remaining 4 slides, is just a point for you to reflect. You don't need to necessarily answer. You can also go back to the slides that we'll provide it to you. It's for yourself to just think about the risks that you may incur in. Second risk, indeed, the lack of commercial skills. The founders are usually scientists or engineers, not trained entrepreneurs, which means that oftentimes they do lack the business skills, the IP strategy, and market research skills that they will need to succeed in going out in the market. And it's also quite complicated to communicate the value, the intrinsic value of the solution that's heavily scientific and heavily technical to a pool of investors that is not technical or scientific. Moving on, we have indeed high capital intensity. This is mostly due to the fact that since it is potential breakthrough technology, it does require expensive infrastructure, labs, equipment, which just makes it even harder to get started on your journey and or your product market fit, for instances. There is low venture capital appetite. Of course, it's not easy for investors to blindly fund a potential innovation. That's the main concern of investors, as some of you may know. and the fact that, politically speaking, there is a fragmented EU funding landscape, which makes it even more hard. It's harder currently in Europe than in other areas of the world, but fortunately, the Europe is walking towards it to make things better for all of us. Fourth risk, so penultimate risk, we have the difficult product market fit, market readiness tends to lag behind, technology maturity, and regulatory barriers. Depending on the sector, this is also very extremely sector specific, especially in Europe, but it does nonetheless generally slow down the adoption and uptake of those technologies. And as I mentioned before, the technology may be ready for commercialization before the customers are, or vice versa. Lastly, we have the scaling and regulatory issues. Competition is less intense initially, but regulatory and scaling barriers are steep and persistent, and the single markets fragmentation of Europe, as I mentioned, is not something that helps the dissemination of those solutions across the market, across different markets even. Scaling requires strong partnership, not just capital. You're not alone in this. You do need a strong ecosystem to help you move across this journey. And with this, I would also like to hand it over back to Jose.
So, very briefly, TRL, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I am aware that you're familiar with the concept, or you had to, because as far as I remember, you had to indicate the TRL of your research when you signed up for this program. But in short, TRL stands for Technology Readiness Level, and it is a framework that comes out of NASA. It was originally developed by them, and then, well, now it's widely used in Europe and across industries to measure how mature a technology is. And they do this on a scale from simple scale from 1 to 9. And the way it works is there are 3 thresholds, if you will. So the first one, so it's TRL 1 to 3, is for early research and proof of concept. Then slowly, as the technology matures, you have TRL 4 to 6, which is lab validation, testing the prototypes, and then TRL 7 to 9, system demonstration, and then deploying the products in the market. And after that comes scaling, new markets, internationalization, and what's not. So it basically shows the journey that an idea follows from the ideation stage to market-ready technology. This program is assuming that no one here among the present is working with TRL 7 to 9 technologies or research. If that is the case, perfect. I think it's still going to be valuable for you. But the truth is, in the coming weeks, we will be delving into specifics and aspects that are going to be more valuable and more suitable for people who are on the mid/lower side of the TRL scale. And why TRL matters and it's important is because it creates a common language for all the actors in the ecosystem. So researchers, funders, and industry that allows everyone to understand where do they stand in terms of the commercialization process, what is needed from them, and what can actually they can actually expect from other actors in the ecosystem. But now I want to talk a little bit about these actors, because when we talk about deep tech, it's important to understand there's not just one single actor that is pushing for deep tech. It's not just the researchers working and doing stuff. It's researchers are if you will, the first stop of the way. So it is a whole ecosystem that needs to work together in order to succeed. So first we have researchers, universities, research institutions, and they are, as I said, the starting point. So that is where the fundamental R&D happens. That is where IP is created and when the talent stays or originates. Then you have companies, you have the corporates that come in to help scaling those technologies, to provide market access, to validate those products. So basically what they do is they prove that a technology is, first of all, ready, and second, suitable for real world conditions. Then you have incubators and accelerators that bridge that gap. You may know the term, the valley of death, between university and real world. And real world can be society, can be industry, but there's a gap. And these incubators and accelerators contribute to that, or to bridging the gap through mentorship, through training, support when it comes to business model development, networking opportunities, which are not always available for early stage researchers. So that is what they do. Then you have investors providing funding across all the different stages of commercialization, with early phases benefiting, I would say, a lot more from public grants than the later stages of development. But when the technology matures, that's when the venture capital enters, and when depending on the potential of the technologies, they get more funding. And then you have the governments and the policymakers, which are the ones who make the rules. They create the framework conditions, and they do this through systems of incentives, through policies, regulation, and they make deep tech innovation suitable and possible, at least in theory, because, well, we all know that the single market is not so single, and there is a lot of fragmentation when it comes to regulation across Europe. But that is a conversation for a different day. So I want to briefly stop on what I just mentioned on the governments and the policymakers and the support that they provide, because I think overall Europe is doing well in terms of establishing those support networks. And we need to start with Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is a framework funding scheme or framework that runs from 2021 to 2027. It is the European Union's main research and innovation framework. And it has different pillars, which are different area of focus. And pillar 2 is the one that focuses on global challenges and the European industrial competitiveness. I'm sure you've heard recently about the so-called Draghi report, and you probably know by now that Europe all of a sudden is all about being competitive and being a top player in the global scale. So Horizon Europe is where deep tech meets the European Union's priorities, strategic priorities. So European Union funds research in a way that is aligned with their priorities. Then you have the EIC, the European Innovation Council. And this is an institution that was founded in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and it bridges the gap between radical innovations, breakthroughs, cutting edge, call it what you will, and market-ready innovation. And it does this through 3 different funding schemes or pathways. You have Pathfinder, which focuses on early stage research and scientific breakthroughs. You have Transition, which focuses on validation of ideas, and as I mentioned, just bridging the gap between lab and market. And Accelerator, as the name indicates, is just about scaling and taking those technologies further. Reality is that the EIC has been quite successful since its foundation. Between 2018 and 2023, they have supported companies with a valuation of, I think, it's written there. So 70 billion, over 70 billion, yes. And they include 8 unicorns and 150 centaurs. I guess you know what unicorns and centaurs mean, but just to get it all the way, unicorns are companies with a valuation of over 1 billion euros or dollars, and centaurs are companies that are reporting an annual revenue of over 100 million. So yeah, it's quite successful so far, and it's becoming probably the main tool that the European Commission has to boost deep tech. And then we have the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, also known as the EIT. They launched this Deep Tech Talent Initiative. They're focusing on skills and talent, essentially. This initiative is ensuring that besides all those efforts, Europe has the talent to actually catch up and to actually deliver on these innovation ambitions. So just to sum up, Horizon Europe is deciding where the research should be focusing according to the priorities of the European Union. The EIC is taking that research to market, and the EIT is making sure that people have the right skill to work on those technologies and to keep driving the competitiveness in Europe. The deep tech entrepreneur, which is hopefully what all of you, if not most of you, are right now, and what all of you will be at the end of this training program. And we will do our best to make sure that happens. There's a common misconception that entrepreneurship means betraying your own values and principles, chasing profits, abandoning your integrity, and it sometimes means that. I'm gonna say otherwise, but it's not always like that, and it's certainly not the case for deep tech entrepreneurship. Deep tech entrepreneurship is about amplifying impact. It's about uh, being proactive and being able to pursue opportunities, to identify those opportunities, and to translate the complex science and the research that you're all working on into something that can develop in a real world solution, something that can actually have a societal impact or an economic impact, or basically to make sure that it doesn't stay inside a drawer at a university. So there are some features that we recognize in the deep tech entrepreneur. The deep tech entrepreneur understands the technology very well, but they also understand the context in which this technology can actually create value. The deep tech entrepreneur is not necessarily the CEO of a startup. In fact, our research in this project in the Launchpad shows that many impactful researchers take on entrepreneurial roles, not as CEOs, but as founders or co-founders, as scientific advisors or innovation leads. Something I would like to mention is that the fact that a researcher is an expert on their area or on their topic is actually something that strengthens the entrepreneurial aspect of it. It's not like entrepreneurial mindset comes at the cost of being an expert. It's more like they feed into each other and they complement each other. And having someone out there who rules or not rules, sorry, who leads startup, but they also have the depth of knowledge that provides this person with credibility in the environment, in the ecosystem, is actually good, and they complement each other. And lastly, the deep tech entrepreneur creates impact, and they do this by making sure that their research, as I said, doesn't stay there unused. They try to make something out of it and benefit society. Yeah, I hope you can see it and you can hear it.
Trust your gut or something. If you're seeing a problem and a really, really big problem, clear pain, start working like yesterday, start working right now on it. And trust your gut, trust your technical capacity. You know, your product is gonna change a lot. So don't have the passion for the product, but for the pain that you are solving. Our product changed a lot. We did hardware. We first thought about software. So don't think about like don't be passionate about the product in a first approach. Be passionate about the pain that you are solving, and trust your technical capacity. Hire the best people out there that you know that you studied together, and you're gonna make it out.
Right. So this one is from an interview with Leonardo Vieira, who's co-founder at Traction. This is a company that commercializes operating systems based on AI to improve or to increase the efficiency of industrial processes. And his message is love the problem, not the solution. And we see how too often scientists and business people alike, they tend to fixate into or onto what they have built. They build something, and if they decide to take it to market, they actually take it there and realize that no one really wants it, or that it actually doesn't solve the problem that it was intended to solve. So you need to love the problem. You know, you need to iterate. You need to constantly or almost constantly question your own assumptions, test, because this is the only way that you can make sure that first of all you're in the right track and not developing something just for the sake of developing it. But second, it's the only way that you can make sure that you're pursuing actual real impact. Deep tech entrepreneurs display a mix of technical, entrepreneurial, and transversal skills that allow them to transcend, if you will, academia and chase real world impact. So first of all, we have technical competence. Here you have the mastery of the science or the engineering that you're working with. You have curiosity across the fields and a mindset for solving problems. Researchers are natural problem solvers. These technical skills are what make the researcher subject matter expert. Most researchers are proficient already in these kind of skills or competences. Now, enter entrepreneurial mindset and all the misconceptions that we have briefly mentioned today and we will mention later on. But entrepreneurial mindset not only means what many people think it means. It's not only about business models. It's not only about selling. It's also about adaptability. It's also about resilience, having the willingness to tolerate risk, to tolerate uncertainty, to cope with stress, and to make sure that you utilize your resources to the fullest. And then we have transversal skills, which also play a big role in this equation. Transversal skills include leadership, communication. Researchers need to often to communicate their research to different kind of audiences, right? It's not the same communicating what you're doing to a normal person in the supermarket than the approach that you follow when you are talking to another scientist, or the approach that you follow when you need to pitch your idea to an investor. You need to be able to adapt your message and to make sure that the receiver is actually understanding in the terms that they need to understand. Collaboration, emotional intelligence to manage your teams, all these are transversal skills, and they are very necessary. The thing is, you actually don't need to master all those skills at once. You can if you want to, if you're curious, or you are up for the challenge, or you think, hey, I actually would like to develop in this direction. I would like to focus on entrepreneurial skills or transversal skills. You can do that by all means, and we know some people who actually do that and can do that. But you don't have to if you don't want to. If you try something out and you think it's not for me, you can also rely on others. You can also build teams. You can also find the right people who match your vision, your mission, and who actually make up for those skills gaps in your process. So as I said, I would like to dispel a few myths, and this is going to be brief, about entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial mindset, the word entrepreneurial actually means. So many people think that being entrepreneurial means leaving academia behind, being all about sales, being all about profit. You're ruthless. As I said a few slides ago, you betray your own values. You are not the person that you used to be. And at some point, you end up leaving science behind because the only thing that matters is your product and making money. What it actually means is solving problems as they come to you, being impactful, being resourceful, understanding what instruments do you have at hand and what is the best way to use them. It also means working on teams and making sure that everyone in the team can fulfill the role that they need to fulfill. And it also means using or making use of the support structures that are out there. And we have here incubators and mentors, but the same applies to the European Commission's support mechanisms that I discussed previously. Funding, for example, applying for funding, being able to write applications for grants. All these things also are also entrepreneurial skills and are also very beneficial for any researchers who's looking to get funding, for example. Now, in reality, if you are a curious person, if you are willing to collaborate with others, if you consider that you're resilient, flexible, you already have many of the skills and the traits of a deep tech entrepreneur. And in the end, if you really want to take your research out of the lab and make an impact out there, you need to be able to reflect, to ask questions, to establish networks that can support you when you're lacking something. And you need to be able to work in teams and communicate to different audiences. And I'm sure that you already have many of these skills. But what our research shows is that many researchers are not aware that they have these skills. And if you're not aware of something, how can you improve it? How can you actively work on it? This that I'm showing you now is it's the result, but condensed way of our investigation phase of DT Launchpad. We came up with a synthesis report that expands on this. But we decided to put some skills, some of the skills gaps and the important skills that we found out that were relevant for deep tech entrepreneurs. You can see them here.